At St. Helens College, a prestigious all-girls university, room 207 in the hostel was home to 4 inseparable roommates: Laura, Anita, Rose, and Tina. They had been friends for 2 years, navigating the ups and downs of university life together. But Tina, with her strange and unexplainable quirks, had always been an enigma. The most mysterious thing about Tina was her hair. Every day, without fail, she would have a completely different hairstyle. Some days it was a neat bun, other days it was a long, luxurious braid that seemed to shimmer in the sunlight. On special occasions, she even wore her hair down in long, flowing waves, as if she had just walked out of a salon. No one ever saw her styling her hair, and despite the constant transformations, it always looked flawless. Lara was the first to notice this oddity. "Does anyone else find it strange that Tina changes her hairstyle every single day?" she asked one evening as the group sat on their beds, studying. Anita looked up from her notebook, raising an eyebrow. "You're right, it's weird. It's like she has a different hairstyle every time we see her. How does she even do it?" Rose, who was always more skeptical, smirked. "Maybe she has a secret hairdresser she's hiding under her bed. It's the only explanation that makes sense." Tina, overhearing the conversation, simply smiled and shrugged. "Let's just say I have my methods. I'm a woman of mystery," she replied, her voice light, yet tinged with something that none of them could quite place. Her cryptic responses only made the curiosity grow. The 3 girls couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to Tina's daily transformations. Was she secretly getting her hair done by someone? Or was there some other reason behind the constant changes? "I'm going to figure it out," Anita declared the next day. "I'll find out what she's doing to her hair, I swear." Over the next week, the girls kept an eye on Tina, but no matter how hard they tried, they never caught her in the act. It was as if Tina's hair was magically styled overnight. Even when they woke up early in the morning or stayed up late, Tina always had a different hairstyle by the time they saw her. "I can't believe it," Lara sighed one afternoon. "We are literally sleeping through her transformations. How does she do it?" "It's like she's a wizard or something," Rose joked, but there was an edge of unease in her voice. Then, one morning, things took an unexpected turn. Tina arrived at breakfast with yet another new hairstyle. This time, it was an intricate set of braids that seemed to have been done with great care. But this time, something was different. The braids appeared fresher, more intricate, as if she had spent hours on them. "Where did you even find the time to do all this?" Anita asked, unable to hold back her curiosity. Tina just smiled again. "Like I said, I have my methods. Don't worry about it." But Laura and the others couldn't stop wondering. What exactly was Tina hiding, and how was she able to change her hair so dramatically every day? It was starting to feel less like an odd habit and more like a mystery they had to uncover. Little did they know, the answer was far beyond anything they could have imagined. The days passed, and the mystery surrounding Tina's hair only deepened. Lara, Anita, and Rose couldn't stop thinking about it. The more they tried to rationalize Tina's flawless, ever-changing hairstyles, the more they realized they couldn't explain it. Every time they asked her, Tina would smile enigmatically and change the subject, leaving them with no answers. One evening, while they sat in their dorm room studying, Rose stood up and stretched. "I've had enough of this. I'm going to figure it out tonight." Her voice was determined, and her face had a mischievous glint. "Figure what out?" Lara asked, looking up from her book. "You know," Rose said, walking to the door, "how Tina does it. I'm going to find out what she's hiding. If she can keep up with all these different styles, she's definitely got something going on." Lara and Anita exchanged glances. Though they had been skeptical at first, they were now as curious as Rose. There was something off about Tina's behavior, and they couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something important. "Are you sure this is a good idea?" Anita asked, but she followed Rose to the door anyway. "I don't care how weird it sounds," Rose replied, pushing open the door. "We need to know the truth." The hallway outside was quiet. It was after midnight, and most of the girls in the hostel were already in their rooms, asleep. But as they reached the end of the hallway, Lara stopped. "Wait," she whispered, her eyes widening. "Look. There, at the end of the hall, they could see the faint glow of light under Tina's door. It was strange because Tina was usually in bed by now, like the rest of them. "She's still up," Anita murmured. Rose raised an eyebrow. "We need to see what's going on. Stay quiet and follow me." The girls tiptoed down the hallway, their footsteps barely making a sound on the tiled floor. When they reached Tina's door, Rose carefully pressed her ear to the wood. She heard no movement, just a quiet, eerie stillness. "Do you think she's asleep?" Lara asked nervously. Rose hissed, her face tense with anticipation. She slowly turned the doorknob, and to her surprise, the door opened easily. It creaked softly as it swung open, revealing a dimly lit room. Tina's bed was in the corner, bathed in the soft glow of a single desk lamp. But there was something so off about the room that none of the girls could immediately place it. As they crept inside, their eyes landed on Tina. She was sitting cross-legged on her bed, but she was different. Her head was not attached to her neck. Instead, it rested gently on her lap, as if it were another part of her body entirely. Anita gasped, her hand flying to her mouth in shock. Tina's head remained still, her closed eyes hidden beneath a thick curtain of hair. Her hands moved with eerie precision, weaving intricate braids into her detached head, as though it were a simple task. The room seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy, the air thick with the sound of Tina's gentle movements. The girls froze, unable to believe what they were witnessing. They had been curious, but they had never imagined anything like this. Lara's mind raced. How was this even possible? Was it a trick? But there was no mistaking the fact that Tina's head was no longer part of her body. It was detached, floating in her lap like an object rather than a vital part of her. Rose whispered, her voice shaking with disbelief. Tina, as if sensing the presence of her friends, slowly raised her eyes from her lap. Her face was serene, almost peaceful, but there was a strange darkness in her gaze. She smiled faintly, as though this was nothing unusual. Do you see now? Tina said softly, her voice echoing in the stillness of the room. I told you, I have my methods. Before the girls could respond, Tina's head gently floated back into place, seamlessly reconnecting with her body as if nothing had happened. She tilted her head, eyes glinting with something between amusement and pity. The girl stood, frozen in shock, as Tina casually adjusted her hair, no different than if she had simply styled it with her hands. I've been hiding this from you for a long time, Tina said, her voice barely above a whisper. But now you know. I hope you understand. The room was deathly silent. Lara, Anita, and Rose stood frozen in place, their eyes wide with disbelief. Tina sat on her bed, her head now perfectly aligned with her neck as if nothing out of the ordinary had just transpired. The air felt thick with tension, the sound of each girl's heartbeat pounding in their ears. Anita was the first to break the silence, her voice barely a whisper. Tina, what was that? How did you do that? Tina's lips curled into a small, knowing smile, as though she had been expecting this reaction all along. She stood up slowly, her posture graceful and composed, as if nothing had disturbed her. I guess it's time to tell you the truth, she said, her voice calm yet heavy with something darker. What you just saw is a part of who I am. It's not just some parlor trick or illusion. It's a gift or a curse, depending on how you look at it. Laura took a cautious step forward, her mind racing with questions. A gift? You can take your head off. The words sounded absurd even as she said them, but she couldn't deny the truth of what they had just witnessed. Tina nodded, her gaze distant, as though she were reliving something from the past. Yes. I can detach my head from my body whenever I want. It's something I've been able to do for as long as I can remember. But it's not something I've ever talked about before. Rose stepped back, her face pale. Why didn't you tell us? Why keep this a secret? Tina sighed, her shoulders slumping for the briefest moment before she straightened again. Because it's not something people understand. People are afraid of what they don't understand, and I didn't want to lose my friends over something so unusual. But you could have trusted us, Anita said, her voice soft but insistent. We're your friends, Tina. We wouldn't judge you. Tina's eyes flickered with a mixture of sadness and guilt. I wasn't worried about judgment. I was worried about what would happen if people found out. This power isn't just harmless. There are those who would use it for their own gain. I've had to be careful, to hide it. If anyone found out, if the wrong people learned what I could do, they would stop at nothing to control me. The three girls exchanged uneasy glances, the weight of Tina's words sinking in. There was a sinister undertone to her confession, one that made their initial shock feel like nothing compared to the gravity of what she was revealing. This wasn't just about a party trick or a strange talent. This was something far more dangerous. Who are these people? Laura asked, her voice trembling slightly. Who would want to control you like that? Tina's expression darkened, her voice dropping to a low, serious tone. I don't know yet, but I've been watching. I've been careful. There are groups, cults, people who believe they can manipulate others for power. If they find out about me, they'll stop at nothing to take me. Rose, who had been silent until now, spoke up, her eyes narrowing. So, you've been hiding your powers this entire time? All because you're afraid of what could happen? Tina nodded. Yes. And I've been trying to live a normal life, hoping they wouldn't notice. But lately, I've been feeling like someone's been watching me. I think they're getting closer. The words hung in the air, chilling the girls to their core. What had started as a seemingly harmless mystery had just unfolded into something far darker. They realized then that Tina wasn't just hiding her powers for her own sake. She was protecting them too. What should we do? Anita asked, her voice soft but filled with determination. Tina hesitated for a moment, then looked each of them in the eye. For now, nothing. I can't involve you in this. It's too dangerous. You've seen enough to understand the stakes, but I don't want you to get hurt because of me. Laura stepped forward, placing a hand on Tina's shoulder. We're your friends, Tina. We'll stand by you, no matter what. Tina looked at her, her eyes welling with unshed tears. Thank you, she whispered. But there's more. Much more. And I'm afraid it's only just beginning. The days that followed Tina's confession were filled with an eerie sense of unease. Laura, Anita, and Rose couldn't shake the feeling that something was looming, that Tina's powers were not just extraordinary, but dangerous. They tried to go about their daily lives, attending classes and studying together, but their conversations always circled back to what they had witnessed in Tina's room. How could something so unnatural feel so casual to her? And why had it taken so long for Tina to reveal the truth? The morning after their late-night conversation, the girls found themselves seated in their usual spot in the campus cafeteria. Their plates were full of food, but none of them seemed to have an appetite. Tina sat with them, her usual lively demeanor absent, replaced by a quiet, almost distant air. Laura couldn't help but study her. Tina's usual confidence was gone, replaced by an almost fragile quality. It was as if the weight of her secret had finally caught up with her. But she didn't speak of it. Instead, she picked at her food, her eyes flickering nervously to the door every time someone walked by. Rose, sensing the tension, cleared her throat. So, we've been thinking, she began, glancing at Anita and Laura. Maybe it's time we take action. You can't keep hiding, Tina. If there's really a group out there after you, we need to do something. Tina looked up at her, a faint smile tugging at the corner of her lips. I appreciate you all wanting to help, but it's too dangerous. I've been dealing with this on my own for years. You don't understand how powerful they are. Laura leaned forward, her voice low but firm. But we want to understand. We're not leaving you to deal with this alone. If you want us to stay by your side, we need to know more. You can't keep us in the dark, Tina. The tension in the air thickened as Tina's eyes flickered around the room. She seemed to be weighing her options, torn between the desire to protect her friends and the need to share her truth. After a long pause, she sighed and nodded. All right. I'll tell you more, but we need to be careful. I can't let anyone else know what's going on. I don't know who can be trusted anymore. Just as Tina spoke those words, the door to the cafeteria swung open, and a tall, slender figure stepped inside. The girl had striking features, sharp cheekbones, dark eyes, and long black hair that cascaded down her back in waves. She looked out of place in the bustling cafeteria, as though she didn't belong in a university setting at all. The moment she entered, Tina tensed visibly, her entire body going rigid. The atmosphere shifted. The group of girls exchanged confused glances, but none of them dared to speak as the mysterious girl walked toward their table. Tina, the girl's voice was soft, but there was an edge to it that made the hair on the back of Lara's neck stand up. I thought I'd find you here. Tina's face went pale, her lips parting in a breathless whisper. What are you doing here, Amina? The girls stared at Tina, their curiosity piqued by the unfamiliar name. Who was Amina? And why did Tina look so frightened? Amina didn't sit down. Instead, she stood over the table, her eyes scanning the group of friends with an unreadable expression. You've been careless, Tina, she said, her gaze settling on the girl. You've exposed yourself. I knew it wouldn't be long before someone else found out. Tina's voice shook as she responded. I've done nothing wrong. Why are you here? Amina's lips curled into a sly smile. You've been hiding for too long. But it's time for you to face the truth, Tina. You can't keep running from who you really are. Rose, not understanding the tension in the room, looked between the two women. What do you mean? She asked boldly, trying to piece everything together. Who are you, and why are you threatening our friend? Amina turned her gaze to Rose, her eyes cold and calculating. I'm not threatening her, she said slowly. I'm here to remind her of what she's capable of. And I think you all need to understand something. Tina's powers are not just a gift. They are the key to something much larger. And there are people out there who would do anything to control it. Anita's stomach dropped at Amina's words, and she looked at Tina for an explanation, but Tina's face remained unreadable, her emotions carefully guarded. This isn't over, Amina added ominously. In fact, it's only just begun. And with that, she turned and walked out of the cafeteria, leaving the girls shaken and uncertain about the future. After Amina's visit, the entire day was clouded with uncertainty. The girls couldn't shake the ominous words that lingered in the air. Tina's powers are the key to something much larger. What could that mean? Who were these mysterious people who sought to control her, and why had Tina kept all of this a secret for so long? Tina remained distant for the rest of the day, her usual vibrancy replaced by a somber silence. It wasn't until the evening, after their last class, that the girls could corner her and demand answers. Tina, what is going on? Lara asked as they sat in their shared dorm room, the dim light from the desk lamp casting long shadows across the walls. Who was that girl? And what did she mean by saying your powers were the key? Tina looked at each of them, her hands nervously twisting the hem of her shirt. She opened her mouth to speak but hesitated, as if the weight of her confession was too much to bear. For a long moment, there was nothing but silence. Finally, she spoke, her voice quiet and shaky. Amina, she's part of a group I used to be involved with. But they're not just any group, they're a secret organization that's been hunting people like me for centuries. People who possess special abilities. The air in the room felt thick as the girls listened intently, trying to make sense of what they were hearing. Tina continued, her voice steadier now. I didn't always know about my powers. At first, it just felt like I was unusually strong, like I could do things others couldn't. But then, one day, I realized I could do something no one else could. I could detach my head. The girls exchanged bewildered glances, trying to wrap their minds around the absurdity of the statement. But Tina's serious expression left no room for doubt. She wasn't joking. I didn't want to believe it at first, she continued, her eyes distant, but I learned to control it. I thought it was just something I could keep to myself, something that made me different, but harmless. But Amina, she's not the only one looking for me. Anita leaned forward, her face etched with concern. Who else is looking for you? What do they want with you? Tina hesitated, her eyes flickering nervously toward the window. The darkening sky outside made the room feel even more suffocating. They want to control the power. They believe it can unlock something greater, something ancient. My head, my detachment, can access other realms, other dimensions. I can go places others can't. And they want to use me as a bridge to those worlds. Lara's eyes widened in disbelief. Other realms? You mean, you're telling us that you can travel between worlds? Tina nodded slowly, her face serious. It's not something I can explain easily. But yes, I can. The first time it happened, I didn't even know what I was doing. I was just somewhere else. It was like I stepped into a different reality. It was beautiful, but also terrifying. And that's when I realized I wasn't just a normal person. I was different, and that difference scared me. Rose, who had been quiet until now, finally spoke up. But why didn't you tell us, Tina? We're your friends. We could have helped you. Tina swallowed hard, a tear slipping down her cheek. Because I didn't want to put any of you in danger. I thought if I kept my powers hidden, I could protect you. But I see now that I can't hide forever. The people who are after me are getting closer, and I don't know how much longer I can run. The room fell into silence, the weight of Tina's revelation hanging heavy in the air. For the first time, the girls truly understood the danger Tina was in, and the danger they were now in, too. They were no longer just students at a university. They were caught up in something far larger, something that could change everything they knew about the world. I don't know what to do, Tina whispered, her voice barely audible. Lara, her face filled with determination, reached across the table and took Tina's hand. You don't have to do it alone. We're in this together. Anita and Rose nodded in agreement, their resolve hardening. They had made it through so much together, nothing was going to tear them apart now. But deep down, each of them felt the same fear. This wasn't just a matter of Tina's safety anymore. Their lives had been changed in ways they couldn't yet understand. And they had no choice but to face whatever came next. The next few days felt different. The weight of Tina's secret hung heavily over them, but it also brought a strange sense of unity. The girls, though frightened, were resolute. They had made a pact, whatever happened, they would stand by Tina. They would face whatever dangers awaited them together. Tina had become more withdrawn, the constant fear of being haunted always lingering in her eyes. She no longer walked with the carefree energy that had once defined her. Now, there was a visible tension in her every movement. At night, she would sit by the window, looking out into the darkness, waiting for something, anything, that might happen. The others, though, had begun to notice that strange occurrences followed her wherever she went. People seemed to watch her more closely, as if sensing there was something extraordinary about her. One evening, as they sat in the dorm room, a knock on the door interrupted their conversation. It was late, and the hallways were eerily quiet, as most students had already gone to bed. Tina froze, her breath catching in her throat. The girls exchanged nervous glances, sensing the unease that had suddenly filled the room. Who could it be at this hour? I'll get it, Lara volunteered, her voice steady despite the tight knot forming in her stomach. She opened the door cautiously, but when she saw who stood in the hallway, her heart skipped a beat. Amina. The girl who had warned Tina. The girl who knew about Tina's powers. Can I come in? Amina asked, her voice calm but carrying an unmistakable air of authority. Her eyes darted nervously toward Tina, who stood frozen in the middle of the room. Why are you here? Tina demanded, her voice sharp, though there was an undeniable edge of fear in it. Amina hesitated, then stepped inside, closing the door behind her with a soft click. I didn't want it to come to this, she said softly. But it's too late now. They know you're here. And they're coming for you. Tina's breath itched as she exchanged a frantic glance with her friends. Who's coming for me? Amina sat down on the edge of the bed, her expression hardening. The ones I warned you about. They're closer than you think. They've been tracking your movements, watching you. They know about your ability, Tina. They've been hunting others like you for years. The air in the room grew heavy with the tension of unspoken truths. The girls were speechless, the dread sinking deeper as Amina continued. They want to use you to open a portal, Tina. To access other realms, other worlds. I thought I could protect you, but they are relentless. They won't stop until they have you. The girls exchanged horrified looks. Tina's heart raced as Amina's words reverberated in her mind. But it wasn't just the words that haunted her, it was the realization that she had been so naive, thinking she could hide and live a normal life. There was no escaping it now. Her power was no longer a secret, and her enemies would stop at nothing to control it. They've already sent someone, Amina added grimly. Someone very powerful. You have to leave. Now. Tina stood up, the fear in her chest growing as she looked out the window. Her heart pounded in her chest, and for the first time, she understood the gravity of the situation. There was no more time to pretend it wasn't happening. She was no longer just a student at a university. She was someone with abilities that could open doors to unimaginable worlds, worlds that others would do anything to control. But as the night grew darker, something deep within Tina stirred. She wasn't going to let anyone take her without a fight. She had kept this secret for too long. Now, it was time to face the truth, and to stop running. We're in this together, Tina said, her voice unwavering. She turned to the girls, her eyes filled with a newfound resolve. Whatever comes, we face it together. And in that moment, they all knew the course ahead would be treacherous. But there was no turning back. The girls didn't sleep that night. Every shadow in the hallway, every creak of the floorboards, made them jump. They sat together in the dark room, their eyes flickering nervously to the door as if waiting for something to break in. Tina was at the window, her face pale, her hands pressed against the cool glass, staring out into the night as if she could see the danger approaching. I don't want to run anymore, Tina whispered, more to herself than anyone else. They'll keep coming for me, no matter where I go. Laura, Anita, and Rose sat in tense silence. They understood what Tina meant. There was no escape from her power, no hiding from the ones who sought to control it. They had to face whatever was coming, whether they were ready or not. We'll protect you, Lara said firmly, though the uncertainty in her voice betrayed her words. They were just students, what could they possibly do against those who were hunting Tina? The room was filled with an unsettling silence. They had made up their minds. Whatever it took, they would stick together. But none of them could have predicted how quickly their resolve would be tested. As the clock ticked toward the early hours of the morning, Tina's eyes suddenly widened. She felt it, a strange energy tugging at her. She stepped back from the window and turned to the others, her face full of dread. They're here. Before anyone could ask what she meant, the air in the room seemed to change. It became thick, heavy, as though the very space was warping. And then, with a loud crack, a blinding light exploded in the center of the room. The girls screamed and stumbled back as the light coalesced into a swirling mass, like a vortex. The walls around them seemed to distort, the room blurring at the edges. Something ancient, something powerful, had opened. It's the portal, Tina gasped, her voice barely audible over the deafening hum that filled the air. She backed away slowly, eyes wide with terror. They found me. The girls didn't know what to do. The vortex was so powerful it seemed to pull them in, the air vibrating with an energy they could barely comprehend. The room shook as the light intensified, the sound rising to a deafening roar. Tina! Rose cried, grabbing her arm. What do we do? But Tina was already moving toward the swirling light. She didn't understand why, but something inside her was drawing her closer. It was as though the portal called to her, an ancient force that was too strong to resist. This is it, Tina said, her voice trembling with fear and awe. This is what they want. The power, the key to the other worlds. No. Laura shouted, grabbing Tina's arm. We won't let you go alone. But Tina pulled away, her eyes filled with a strange, determined look. You don't understand. I have to do this. I have to face them, or they'll keep coming. They'll hate you. Hate all of you. Tina. Amina's voice suddenly echoed in the room, sharp and desperate. The girls turned to see her standing in the doorway, her face pale, eyes wide with fear. Don't. You don't know what will happen if you go through that portal. It's not just a passage to another world, it's a trap. But Tina's gaze was fixed on the portal. She took a deep breath and stepped forward, her hand reaching out toward the swirling vortex. I can't hide anymore, she whispered. With one final glance at her friends, Tina stepped into the portal. The light exploded, and the room seemed to implode in on itself. The girls screamed as the room spun out of control, their vision blurring and distorting. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, everything stopped. The portal collapsed, leaving the room eerily silent and dark. Tina was gone. The girls were left in a stunned, terrified silence. They had no idea where Tina had gone, or what the portal had taken her to. But one thing was certain, this wasn't over. They couldn't just stand by and do nothing. Tina had faced her fears, but now it was time for them to face theirs. We have to find her, Lara said, her voice trembling but filled with determination. And as they all nodded in agreement, they knew the path ahead would be perilous. The portal was just the beginning. There were worlds they couldn't even imagine, and enemies they couldn't even fathom. But one thing was clear, they couldn't lose Tina now. Whatever it took, they would bring her back. The days that followed Tina's disappearance were endless. Lara, Anita, and Rose couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't focus on anything but the haunting memory of the portal swallowing Tina whole. Their minds raced with questions: where had Tina gone? Was she safe? And most importantly, how could they possibly bring her back? They spent every waking moment searching for answers. They scoured the library, looking for any mention of ancient portals or interdimensional realms. They met with Amina, who revealed more about the dark forces that sought to control Tina's abilities. But despite their best efforts, the answers were elusive. It was as if Tina had vanished into thin air, leaving only a void behind. But then, one fateful night, something happened. It began with a flicker in the air. The temperature in the dorm room dropped, and the hairs on the back of their necks stood on end. The room felt charged with an electric energy, and the girls instinctively knew something was about to change. A knock on the door startled them. Lara hesitated before opening it, her heart pounding in her chest. She had no idea what to expect. But when she pulled it open, her breath caught in her throat. There stood Tina. Her hair was disheveled, her clothes torn, and her face was pale and exhausted. But she was alive. Tina! Anita gasped, rushing forward to embrace her. But Tina stepped back, her eyes wide with a strange, distant look in them. I'm not the same, Tina whispered, her voice low and strained. You have to understand. I've seen things. I've been places, things no one should ever experience. The girl stood in stunned silence, unsure of what to say or do. Tina's presence felt different, like she wasn't fully there, or perhaps, like she had been changed by the portal. Her eyes held a deep sadness, as if she had seen too much, experienced too much. Tina, where did you go? What happened? Laura asked, her voice trembling. Tina took a deep breath before speaking, her voice heavy with a weight the girls had never heard before. The portal, it led me to another world, one full of darkness and chaos. There were creatures there, things that weren't human, and they wanted me. They wanted my power. The girls listened, horror and disbelief spreading across their faces as Tina described her journey. She spoke of strange, twisted landscapes, of beings who thrived on fear and darkness, and of a war that raged between realms. She told them how she had been trapped in a prison of her own mind, her powers exploited by those who wished to open the portal permanently and use it to unleash their power on the world. It was horrible, Tina continued, her eyes welling with tears. I barely escaped. The only way I could survive was to sever my connection to that place, cut myself off from it. I didn't want to come back, but they are still out there. And they won't stop until they get what they want. The girl stood in stunned silence, trying to process the magnitude of Tina's experience. The quiet weight of her words hung over them like a cloud. You can't leave again, Rose said softly. You have to stay with us. We'll figure this out together. Tina's gaze softened, and she nodded. But deep down, she knew it wasn't that simple. The forces she had encountered in the other world were relentless, and they would never stop coming for her. But she also knew one thing for certain, her friends, Lara, Anita, and Rose, had never wavered. They had stuck by her through it all. And in that moment, as they stood in the quiet dorm room, Tina understood that there was still hope. I'm not alone, Tina whispered, her voice full of resolve. And as long as I'm not alone, we'll fight. And so, the journey didn't end. It was only the beginning. Whatever lay ahead, whatever challenges they would face, Tina knew that with her friends by her side, she could face anything. They had been through hell and back together. And together, they would protect each other, no matter what. The darkness may have been haunting them, but they weren't afraid anymore.